Welcome to the second part of this live newscast. In case you're joining us, this is KBC News Hour. I'm Njue, and I'm joined by the Speaker of Makueni County Assembly, Douglas Mbilu. We're going to talk a lot about role of county assembly, and most recently, they also had some election. Karibu san.
Thank you very much, Troy.
Yeah. Yes. Now, first things first, you are having county assembly chairmanship elections last week.
That is true.
How did it go?
Well, Troy, the 47 county assemblies are under umbrella,
yes,
which is an association registered with the Registrar of Societies. Mm-hmm. We are trying to pursue it to have it registered and recognized under the Intergovernmental Relations Act, just like the Council of Governors.
Oh, okay.
And recently, this was the first democratic elections that we had.
Mm-hmm.
I was contesting for the position of the chairmanship.
Mm-hmm.
My vice running mate was coming from Viga, Hasna Mudezi,
mm-hmm,
and my competitor, the Speaker for Nyandarua,
okay,
Wahome Degwa,
uh-huh,
deputized by the Machakos County Assembly Speaker Florence Mwangangi.
uh-huh,
And we had a very healthy competition.
uh-huh.
Imagine going all the county assembly asking for the votes.
Wow.
And you are asking for votes from people who have been elected. And therefore, it's the hallmark of the process of actualizing democracy.
Yes.
So these are a body that coordinates all county assemblies for purposes of legislation,
mm-hmm,
oversight,
mm-hmm,
and representation, so that much as assemblies are independent, we require uniformity because there are common practices that mm-hmm, we must maintain across the country. And as we engage other institutions, the national government,
yes,
Senate, National Assembly, and independent offices, mm-hmm, then we need a common approach so mm-hmm, that then there is no conflict of ideas mm-hmm, when you are trying to pursue same agenda to achieve same results for the people of Kenya. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And since we're talking about the state of devolution in Kenya, what does the county speakers forum intend to change? Because this is the first thing. You've talked about it being something just like the Council of Governors. What is this council supposed to articulate, being the first time it's being in office?
The Constitution of Kenya provides for two arms of government, mm-hmm, and the level of the county government. That is the county executive led mm-hmm, by the governor,
yes,
and the county assembly led by the speakers.
Yes.
So the Council of Governors tend to come together mm-hmm, to harmonize their views and things and have a common approach. Remember, we have the so-called the summit, which is chaired by the president and the chair for the Council of Governors, which discusses issues on county executive. Mm-hmm. But the assembly arms of the governments have not been represented in that forum. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the drafters of the Constitution did not conceptualize a situation where you need to bring the county assemblies mm-hmm, together for purposes of uniformity on issues of legislation. Therefore, that is what we're pursuing mm-hmm, together on issues of common approach. Remember, recently there was the so-called the economic blocks,
yes,
the Lake region, there is the frontiers,
yeah,
and therefore as county assemblies we've come together and looked what is our role in legislation and facilitating budget to enable cross-cutting issues beyond tribal lines. Mm-hmm. For example, you find that in the Lake region you have aspects of Rift Valley, mm-hmm, Western and Nyanza coming together, mm-hmm, notwithstanding the fact that they don't come from the same political domain. Mm-hmm. And therefore that has really helped the assemblies and the county executive arms of the government to come together and discuss issues that are touching on people, yes, on issues that are cross-cutting, either regionally or nationally.
Yes.
So the essence of County Assemblies Forum is to advance and promote legislation, oversight and representation, yes, across the country, as well as good relationship between the national government, mm-hmm, the Office of the Presidency, National Assembly, Senate and other independent offices.
Indeed.
Yes.
Because of the interest of time, let's shift focus back to Makueni, yes, County.
Yes, please.
It began with a petition to the president that we need to do away with Makueni County and go back to the ballot, but that actually ended in the last government. Now, even the Auditor General has given Makueni a clean bill of health, something that many counties have not been able to do. What exactly are you doing between the county assembly and the executive?
Fortunately or unfortunately, yes, I was at the scene where the shooting took place, and yes, I was a victim. I was among some that survived that gunshot.
Wow.
I was at the middle of the things when the citizens petitioned the president.
Yes.
And I think there was divergence of opinions,
Yes.
because at the inception of county government, there were problems that even we are witnessing in some counties.
Yes.
Because of question of budget allocation for the assembly versus budget allocation for development for the people. At that time, the governor insisted, together with the citizens, that the assembly does not justify and cannot justify why they require over 1 billion shillings
Yes.
for managing issues and managing the affairs of their welfare. And I must tell you, it is because of that petition, constitutional petition, and a commission on inquiry, which gave recommendations that the Commission on Revenue Allocation will be setting ceilings for county assemblies, recurrent expenditure, and ceilings for executive recurrent expenditure, and therefore ring-fencing development expenditure for the county government.
So a lot is going to the
born.
development, right?
So that a lot goes to the development.
Yes, yes.
Then over time, there's a new assembly where I was elected as a speaker. The governor was re-elected, and we approached it differently. Many are the times that we don't agree.
Yes.
But shouting does not justify that you're doing your things right in bedroom. It is how you resolve them, agree to disagree, because there are priorities and we must agree on the priorities of the county. And many are the times that we meet with the governors and the CECs and we don't agree.
Yes.
But then we know that at the end of the day, we must agree in the interest of the citizens of Makueni. Yes. And some of the projects that we have prioritized, there is road, there is health, there is agriculture, fruit factory. There are golden projects that the citizens have an interest in, subject to a public participation. And therefore the governor has an obligation to honor after public participation. And therefore the county assembly must jealously protect the interest and the sovereignty of the people, such that when we are making our budget, we already know where we are focusing on. Issues that spur socioeconomic growth in our county. And therefore chances are that we will likely to disagree on the priorities, but we must agree in line with the interest and the preferences of the people, subject to a public participation during our budget making process. And then after that, we will engage in a very robust implementation of the project. The role of the county assembly is not to implement project. We are not interested in that. But since we have passed the budget, we hold into account every executive committee member on implementation of a project, the quality of that project, and the expenditure, and whether there was prudence in procurement aspect of it. The role of oversight is a function of a county assembly. The Auditor General relies on county assemblies to investigate, inquire, and interrogate the audit report to justify whether the expenditure was prudent or not. The role of the county assembly of Makueni is to ensure that every accounting officer accounts for every single shilling, so that the auditor is satisfied. And that is what you've done. But again, we have bore it to the governor, because the governor on several occasions has asked the county executive committee members to take accountability on the resources in their respective departments. And therefore, the success of accountability in Makueni, and why, in my view, we qualified to have an qualified report in the view of the Auditor General, is because, one, the commitment of the governor on transparency, the public involvement and engagement of the citizens of Makueni on budget making process, implementation of project through project management committees, and then robust accountability as managed by the county assembly of Makueni, which I preside over. Yes.
And being the Speaker of the County Assembly, the role of County Assembly, and especially in budget making process, we've seen so many counties really disagree on a number of issues. Even the National Assembly does that. How do you ensure that the projects that you have laid down, perhaps in the budget, are implemented to the letter?
First thing, when you have problems between an executive arm of the government and the legislature, my view and the experience that I have in government is an ego issue. We cannot disagree on funds that do not belong to us. These funds do not belong to the governor, neither to the president, neither to the National Assembly, nor the Senate. These funds belong to the taxpayers. So unless we have a different view on the interest of the citizen, then we need not to agree. Because if we agreed that the primary goal in this financial year is water and health, then how can we agree? we can always disagree on the modalities of execution of that program, but not as a matter of priority. If in Kenya we agree that devolution is the way to go, then I do not see why the National Assembly and the Senate, the President must differ, unless there is a misconception that this is our money. And I must remind them that this is money that belongs to the taxpayers. So what you're seeing in most of counties, and I saw it in Makueni that time because I was working there, is a ego. That I will not cede ground, and I will not release a cent, and I will not step down for this. That ego is not a good one. The ego between the National Assembly and the Senate, I think it's a confusion that is not giving precedence to the citizens of Kenya.
Something that is pulling down devolution, right?
Absolutely, it is pulling down, because how can you have county government have budgets that are not premised on the division of revenue bill? It's absolutely unconstitutional, and we cannot spend money on that basis. And therefore, the institution of Senate and that of National Assembly and that of Executive and Treasury could not have led this country into that state. It's an absurd thing that we should not be talking about, because we must protect the interest of devolution, because that is where the rubber meets the tire.
Indeed.
Yes.
Now, because of the interest of time, there is health. I've seen a number of big projects in Makueni County. There is health.
Yes.
There is the mega dam.
Yes.
At least it's a breath of fresh air.
Yes.
After we've heard about Arol and Kimorel. And there is also economy. How are you merging all these to at least make sure that you have increased revenue, of course?
Yes.
If there's increased revenue, of course, there's more money for development.
Fortunately, I was a CEC in the last term, and I used to sit in the county cabinet when we prioritized health. And the reasoning was very simple. If that mother and a child, if a child is sick, then it means the mother is sick because has to take care of that baby. And the husband will not go to work, and the sister will not get school fees. So she'll come back from home. So for about 3 weeks, the entire family is sick. Then the following day, the MCA, or the following month, the MCA is involved in fundraising towards a medical bill. And therefore you have a sick society, socially, politically, culturally, and politically dysfunctional. So we said, sort health. And when you sort health at household level, then you will make every individual in society active to develop for themselves, to look for food for themselves. They will go to look for water for themselves, so that the government comes up with a program that are going to facilitate them now to promote to macro and micro economies. That was the argument, and that's why we prioritize. In Makueni, you will not get a function for fundraising for medical bill within that context. 2, we went to the fruit development. Makueni is a semi-arid area, and some of the best and sweetest mangoes, they come from Makueni. We developed a factory worth about approximately 800-900 million. Which is run by the county government. There has been an argument that we need to privatize it, but we have protected jealously, because the business of the government is to guarantee the farmer returns, so that the farmer concentrates on production of farm produce and surplus to take to the market. And when they get their returns, they will have no business for applying for bursary. They will have business to feed themselves. You have a healthy society. And therefore the question of raising revenue through that factory against and ensuring that the farmers returns, then that makes us think twice. For example, the business of cereal boards was to guarantee farmer 50 shillings per kilogram, for example, which has not happened in many counties because they have commercialized it and then exposed the farmers. So the counties that are producing more maize must protect the farmers, guarantee the prices and the surplus, withdraw it from the farmers, hold it, and then release it to the market. That way you're going to have a sustainable economic development on agriculture at the lowest level. That's what you've been able to do. Health is the leading program that you're doing in Makueni. Of course, we know the president has rolled it out in a number of counties, and we are very happy that you would want to have it to happen in the rest of this country. Very fantastic, very interesting. But the county government must ensure that you allocate resources, and not just resources, but the human capital that is going to meet the needs of the people, and check corruptions and put in place systems of management, including identification of illness, control of drugs, that is very important. As a county assembly, you must come in and constantly check whether the health-seeking behavior has improved in the first place. How much drugs did you purchase, and whether they are being managed in the proper way. So if you have a universal health care where drugs are for free because you want people to produce back to their homes, but there is no oversight and oversight over the program, then you're going to lose it again because there will be so much loopholes in dispensary and hospital that drugs will be stolen. So that is one of the challenges that we have been able to deal with between ourselves and the department.
Makueni County was the first county to roll out that ambitious project of universal health. How is it playing out as we speak?
Fantastic, very well. Very well. Jealously protected. I must tell you, recently, the County Assembly Committee on Health recommended for a sacking of an officer who was caught stealing some drugs. A County Assembly Committee. So it was that serious. The department was willing to do so. And on several occasions, when nurses have been on strike in this republic, the governor of Makueni and the Committee on Health have had one-on-one meeting to persuade them to engage into the business of treating people as you negotiate for the salaries. So there must be a compromise if we have to deliver these services. But the question of ego in county government, that you must do this, I don't want to do this, it is going to affect the citizen in the negative way, in my view.
And there's youth empowerment and there's a lot of unemployment, even in Makueni County. How are you assuring that at least the youths are empowered? Because trust me, if they are not, there's also other problems that we have to grapple with, like security, right?
One of the problems that we're dealing with, firstly, was to manage the drug abuse, and particularly the alcohol intake and the registration and so forth, which we have a law in place that manages alcohol. You cannot sell alcohol unless you are licensed in Makueni. That's point number one. But again, we have realized there are categories of youth. There are youth class 8. There are youth that has never gone to school. There are youth from 4. There is youth in university. There are youth women. There are youth young men. And that is a very dynamic area that you have to deal with. And if you don't unpack it, then you'll be dealing with a concept of youth that you do not understand. There are youth along Mombasa Road. There are youth in the interior. So unless you understand that, then it's not very possible to deal with. Currently, we have a youth policy that is coming in place so that then we integrate the youth programs, because you cannot have an independent youth program. You must mainstream youth in health, youth in agriculture, youth in labor work, and youth in internship. As we speak, we have an internship policy where some graduate, not less than 200 after they graduate from university, they have a guaranteed attachment in the county government facility for a period of 1 year with a retainer of not less than 10,000 for them to acquire an experience in service, public service. That is a category of the youth that we are dealing through the program of internship. Then there is youth that we are mainstreaming in mango growing sector. There is youth that we are mainstreaming in micro irrigation production of vegetables. Along Mombasa Road, you're going to see quite a number of them trying to vendor. Vendors who are trying to do their green maize and tomatoes and sukumas and that category. But then there is youth that is sinking in cut muguka, which requires now a rehabilitation program. You must be part of them so that then you can help them solve the problem, so that you recover them back to the, and especially the men are grossly affected. Yes.
And the matter of insecurity, or let's talk about security. How is it in Makueni County?
Makueni is a secure county, except the ordinary cases of criminal attacks that will happen along the highway because we may not have a control. But being a semi-arid area, I think we have a culture of Christianity, culture of values that does not encourage thievery except on extreme cases. I think we are not doing very badly, except the ordinary criminal elements that from one time or another they will arise. We do not have a problem as such.
And of course, challenges are definitely there, especially now that the counties have not received their share of revenue from the national government. We had some speakers at the Supreme Court while I was covering that, that case. In your view, what is your view on the division of revenue bill as it is right now?
The division of revenue bill cannot be discussed because it's a provision in the constitution. And there's no one there's nobody who is above the Constitution.
Yes.
And therefore, we ought not to have had a budget in place when there is no division of revenue bill. And therefore, the application before the Court of Laws by the Council of Governors and the county government of the division of the revenue bill, in my view, is a matter that must be taken seriously and must be addressed by the court. Because the percentage that is going to the county is even less than 15% if you compute. And therefore, for the national government to have used its tyranny of numbers,
yes,
and the very fact that they have control over legislation of a Senate is compromising the values and the principles of the Constitution. And therefore, we are calling upon them to have more resources allocated to the county so that they can execute. The argument that resources are mismanaged in counties does not hold water.
Why is that?
It's an argument.
Because the president said, why don't we use what we have right now? Because even other the others are saying, whatever we gave you, you cannot tell us, some counties cannot tell us where this money is. So why don't we just first operate with what we have as we look for other ways of revenue generation?
What happened to what was given to Aro and Kimure Dam? Was it taken away by the governors? The answer is no. What about that which was billions that were taken away at the youth? Were it counties? No. And therefore, there are elements of corruption both at the national and county government.
Yes.
And as a nation, we are dealing with a vice that is cross-cutting. But you could be dealing with cows at the level of the county government.
Yes.
But at the national government, there are lions and tigers and elephants.
Yes.
And therefore, let us not politicize the vice of corruption. There are elements and ministries in government that are not corrupt in this country. There are counties that are not corrupt.
Yes.
We cannot generalize that using only one county. And we must accept that is a problem that you're dealing with. So let us respect knowing that if health is devolved, agriculture is devolved, rural roads are devolved, chances are that they are likely to be implemented better at the lowest level where citizens can ask questions than when they are procured by contractors who are in Nairobi. And if they are devolved, leave it to the county governments and to be able to manage it. I do not know why the national government is still holding on the functions that are for the county government. Why do we have primary schools up to date that have not been roofed? They have no floor. They CDF. And why is it that you can see some small steps and milestone 5 years after devolution is in place? CDF is over 10 years. But rarely can you see a police station that looks like a police station, even when security is a devolved functions. How do we house our police officers? How have we managed the staff room for primary schools where our teachers are staying? What about the classroom? Where are these funds which are allocated to the national government? Why is the national government interested in the county government function? The fact that Makueni has succeeded in health, or Kirinyaga has succeeded in something else, or Nandi has succeeded in something else which is devolved, the national government ought not to salivate over it and want to copy-paste. They should copy-paste, but apply that practice and principle on functions limited to the national government, but not to the county government, in my view.
And there's the Building Bridges initiative, and there's also the
Punguza Mzigo.
Punguza Mizigo, actually. Which one would... have they been to Makueni County before?
They have not, because there's an injunction on the same.
Yes, before the injunction, had they come to Makueni?
They requested to come to Makueni, but then they could not come because there's an injunction. I am aware the mover or the proposal of that constitutional amendment bill is going around to counties just trying to sensitize. And strongly you had the former Prime Minister and former Vice President Representative Kalonzo Musyoka indicating that that Ekuru Okot and others, they are not living with the reality of the political practice and situation and reality in Kenya. Simple. The Punguza Muzigo is trying to devolve more resources to the counties in a nutshell. However, it is compromising the precursor or the button that triggered a debate for a referendum in Kenya. So the debate for referendum in Kenya was triggered by a handshake arising from a political conflict between NASA
Yes.
and Jubilee.
Okay.
And the debate that time was, you cannot have a constitution that as a winner takes it all and the loser goes home.
Okay.
And therefore, why I think some players are arguing that the Puguza is practicing outside a political reality, yes and no. On devolving more resources, 100%, correct. And maybe why they are not agreeing with some principles, quote, quote, is because it's not providing for president, deputy, and the deputy prime minister arising from the election post-conflict that we had that time, in my view.
Indeed.
Yes.
Thank you so much for making time. Indeed, we've run out of time. But a confirmed report is that Mombasa County Police Boss Johnston Ipala has indeed confirmed that over 20 youths are terrorizing residents of Bamburi area, Kisauni constituency. Again, confirmed reports by the Mombasa County Police Boss Johnston Ipala is that over 20 youths are terrorizing residents of Bamburi area, Kisauni constituency. We definitely will be bringing you a comprehensive bulletin much later. But that's how we wrap up Perspective for this evening. Thank you indeed so much for watching. Back to business.